Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 43 of The Squad Room. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Garrett Tesla. I'm an active duty patrol sergeant for a sheriff's department in Southern California. If this is your first time listening to the show, which I suspect for a lot of you it might be, because I think today's guest is going to bring a lot of new people to the show, this show is about optimizing, maintaining, and developing law enforcement fitness and being fit throughout your career, fit for duty, tactical athlete, all those important things. That encompasses our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health, our leadership, all of those things that go into making us better. The point of this show is trying to make myself better and then share some of those tips. And today I got a lot of them out of our guest, Tim Kennedy, UFC star, fighting in November at Madison Square Garden, former Green Beret, still involved in that community, but active duty Green Beret. What I learned about Tim's always been like honestly my favorite fighter, and I'm not saying that because he was on the show, but I'm like a casual fan of UFC, but he's always entertained me in the way that he talks, and you'll get it today in his very candid style, his very open style. He is very vocal about his beliefs, and he is a force of personality, even via Skype from 1,200 miles away. Had a great conversation, and it was just oozing out of the interweb. So Tim was kind enough to come on. I've always been a fan of his, but I never really thought he had something to add to my show, or something I never thought of him as a guest for the show until I heard him on the Jocko Willink's podcast, and he and Jocko got into some intense conversation about law enforcement training and what they would want to do to train up law enforcement around the world, and that Tim is involved in that now, but he also added that he has a history in law enforcement. His family is in law enforcement, and he himself actually went through the academy, and he had job offers from police agencies and was on his route towards becoming a cop. And we'll talk about why he didn't do that, or why he eventually shifted from that to the military. We'll talk about the episode, but that was fascinating to me, and I thought it would be great to get his perspective. Now, the perspective of someone who's gone to war and has trained at a top level of mixed martial arts, and what the things that he wants to bring to law enforcement. And then I heard him on the Chive podcast, and he's hilarious on that too. I'll link to both of those in the show notes. But if you're looking for other podcasts talked about that have Tim Kennedy on, Jocko's podcast is one. The Chive podcast is another, where he's just different parts of his personality coming out in both, and he's great in both. And he's a great interview. He gives a lot of very sound advice, and we discuss a lot of things, and we even discuss a controversial post that he recently made, and I'll get to that in a second. So he was a great guest to have on. It was odd because I learned that he actually ended up with a job offer from my own agency, and I checked with some partners who, lo and behold, went through the academy with him, and they remember him as being as intense back then, 12-something years ago, as he is today. And so I was happy to know that his personality hadn't changed. It sounds like one bit. But I can't thank Tim enough for coming on the show. Make sure you follow him on Instagram at Tim Kennedy MMA for some very cool. I mean, it's a mixture of like hilarity, gun porn, and just motivational kind of stuff. And he was super cool to give us some time and chat. So that is definitely something I want you guys to look into. All right, so before we get more into Tim and that show, I want to thank our new sponsor for starting this episode. This is cool. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. If you don't know what Audible is audiobooks. All the books that you could read or buy on Amazon, almost all of them you can get in Audible or in audio format. I like this for our audience because just like podcasts, and I know that a lot of you are listening to my podcast when you're driving around, well, once you're done with my podcast, if you're still looking for something to kind of expand your mind, to open your horizons, and to pursue other ideas, audiobooks are another great way to do that. A lot of us commute. We have commute times. We have downtime at work. We're driving around in a patrol car in the dead of night, and there's nothing going on, and audiobooks are a great way to occupy your mind, keep awake, and also use that time efficiently and effectively to get better. So audiobooks I'm super psyched on, and Audible.com is here as a sponsor. You can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/the squad room. All one word. audibletrial.com/the squad room. Free 30-day trial, free audiobook of your choice. And it's cool. There's no commitment from there. It's a monthly subscription if you choose to move forward with it, but you don't have to. Just check it out and get a free audiobook and a 30-day download, free trial. It's really cool. You get to keep the book even if you decide not to sign up for Audible, and you're supporting the show in a big way. My book recommendation for this month, I'm going to try and do one for every episode. I could try and give you a book recommendation for every episode. This one is just like the guy we just mentioned, a friend of Tim Kennedy, Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership. I've talked about it before on the show. It's an excellent book. His co-author, Leif Babin, and him, lieutenant commander and commander of a SEAL team and they were in charge of the team that was made famous by Chris Kyle in American Sniper. So they got a lot of insights. It's a great book. Check it out. audibletrial.com/the squad room. All right, so back to Tim. Tim was open to talking about anything, and we did. Just about a week before we jumped on the phone together, he put out a post, an Instagram post, Facebook post, that turned out to be wildly controversial. And if you follow him or you follow UFC or you follow military stuff, you've probably heard some of the dust up that came of it. And we talk about it on the show, and I thought his response to it was really interesting. For you who don't follow any Tim or the military or MMA and anything like that, you may not be aware, but I think if you're listening to the show and you're a cop, you're aware of the issues around PTSD and mental health and that sort of thing, and that's a big topic on our show. So he put out a post that got, I think, taken the wrong way by a lot of people, and we talk about on the show. I want to read it verbatim so that if you haven't heard it, you'll understand the context of that conversation that we have, because it becomes it's probably the most important thing we talk about on the show. And if you don't understand what we're talking about and why it was a big dust up and all that sort of stuff, it's probably not going to make as much sense. So you apologize. I'm not going to try my best Tim Kennedy impression. I'm just going to read it as myself, but this is Tim Kennedy's post that he made. And actually, before I go any further, too, I'll say that this episode, we are adults and we use adult language, and there are some conversations about things in war and in police work that are not for the faint of heart, or especially for little ears. So this is an episode to listen to on your own. So I'll give you that little disclaimer now. All right, so here's Tim Kennedy's post. I'm asked daily about how and why I don't have PTSD. I'm probably the last person on earth you should ask about this stuff. I have killed kids and women during war. I have seen my friends and fellow soldiers burn alive. My adult life is filled with the things horror movies are made of. I could have nightmares every night or be a medicated PTSD victim if I didn't choose every day to make a difference for myself and, more importantly, for the men that died to my left and my right. I don't give a fuck about how they say we are supposed to heal. I'll tell you how to get better. You stop being a pussy. You get up early and train. You train so hard your hands bleed and you sweat acid. You train so hard you collapse seeing stars. You go get cleaned up. Have a healthy meal. Look your best. Dress nice. Then know that the real work is about to start. Find something bigger than yourself and pour every ounce of who you are into it. If that's your family, be the best father on earth. If you're a cop, firefighter, or a trash man, be the best. Know every law, regulation, or route like the back of your hand. Be the best shot on the force. Be in better shape than every officer in the country, and serve the community like it's your reason for living. When you finally get home, be a generous lover, then collapse into bed. You should be falling asleep before your head hits the pillow because you work so hard every moment of the day. Get up the next day and start all over again. At some point, and I'm not sure when, you won't need to do these things anymore, but you will because you know you are making a difference. It won't be about you getting better or healthier. It'll be about you contributing and giving. It will be about being the best version of yourself, and that version is a badass that is hard to kill, that doesn't give a fuck about what other people think. You do the right thing because you believe it. When you finally get to heaven and you get to see your brothers, they will high-five you as you walk by because you made their death worth something and made your life meaningful. Hell, you might even get a little wink from God. So that's Tim Kennedy's post that caused a little bit of an uproar. I think it's fascinating. I think I read it several times before we spoke, and then I took my perspective at it, and I asked him about it, and we talk about it. So it's great stuff. Check out thesquadroom.net /episode 43 for show notes for the show, where you can find the links to Tim's new company, Sheepdog Response, and all the other stuff that he's doing. I mean, this guy is crazy. He's an entrepreneur, and he's a Green Beret. He's a UFC fighter that's fighting November 12th at UFC 205. And the day we talked, we went through a little bit of his routine, but he'd already been to the gym, and he'd already spent 2.5 hours at the range, and it wasn't even noon. So the guy is motivational for sure. Tim Kennedy, thank you for being on the Squad Room, man. This is a treat. I've wanted to have you on for quite some time. Probably first because of the Chive podcast, and you were such a great guest on that one. But then you were on Jocko Willink's podcast as well. He's a good friend of yours, and I'm a fan of that podcast. And you guys really got into a lot about law enforcement. We had a great conversation about that and about the future of the country, and also just mindset. And you, I don't want to say exposed, but you talked about some things about your past that I had no idea about. One of those being that we are, I now live in the area you grew up, but that you have some family in law enforcement, and you have a history in law enforcement actually yourself. So, I mean, I guess my first thing I want to talk about is you originally wanted to be a cop.
Yeah.
And your brother's a cop. Your dad's a career cop.
Yep.
Now, you even went through the academy, yeah?
I did, yeah.
And so, you went through the academy, and oddly enough, as we were talking via email, you got offered a job by my agency, which is just random. That's just totally random to me. But you didn't eventually take the job. I'm curious, why not? What pulled you away from law enforcement, or what was the decision not to pursue that?
So 9/11. I was in grad school. I'd already graduated from the police academy, and I was moving forward. My dream was to be like Clarence Starling from The Silence of the Lambs. I was like, I wanted to sound like creepy dude like Charles Manson to say he was going to eat my intestines or something. All right. When I was in graduate school, this guy named Rex Krebs in San Luis Obispo, California, was victimizing. He was preying on a whole bunch of female college students, and it ended up being this really horrific serial rapist, serial murderer. And that was when I was there, going to school. So I think that shaped a lot about what I wanted to do. That was my first taste of, fear. I had girlfriends and, fellow athletes that were, I could only walk so many people home from school. And that was like, I think, my first real understanding of how evil humans can be. I've known, having my dad be in law enforcement for 30 years, I knew what that looked like. Second, third degree separation. This was the first time seeing girls cry, in the locker room, being like, I don't want to walk home from school. And then after the police academy, I was either going to go to Santa Barbara or Stockton PD. And then I watched some planes crash into the towers. And that was a different taste of evil. That was a different type of inhumanity. And I had a very visceral response. I wanted to kill everyone involved. And I think it went from trying to profile these people. And there was a lot of things going on at the same time, like kind of learning about myself, learning that, wanting to be a forensic psychology major. Not only do you interview the predators, the criminals, but you also go and talk to the victims. And I very quickly realized that I don't have it in me to talk to victims without wanting to go back and execute the criminals. So, the ability that police officers have to, like, my brother and I argue all the time. My brother, who is still, currently an EOD SWAT detective, I was like, why didn't you shoot that guy? And he's like, I didn't think it was the right thing to do. I'm like, but you could have shot him. He's like, yeah. So we fight a lot about that. So I am definitely much more of I went to the right thing, which was wearing green instead of blue. And I'd probably be in jail if I had end up donning the uniform of a police officer.
You found a career where your rules of engagement were more in line, literal, yeah. Right?
It's the only time I'll use the word liberal in a good context.
It's interesting to me because we're talking on September 13th, right? So September 11th was obviously 2 days ago. And I had the same shift coming from private industry to law enforcement after 9/11. It was the same thing where you've talked in previous interviews about how you just felt you weren't participating enough and you weren't being of service and value, and that's what eventually drove me to law enforcement was 9/11. You talked about that incident with a rapist walking around, and it's funny because there's another connection there because my wife was at Cal Poly at the same time, and that's still something that sits with her and all her friends who had to deal with that and who had to have guys like you walk her home, so I totally connect with that too. So what were you studying in grad school? Was it stuff to eventually get you into the FBI or
Yeah. So my undergraduate degree was in criminology. And then from there, went into psychology with a discipline in counseling and forensic psychology. There wasn't a forensic psychology major. So it was a psychology discipline with a focus in counseling and forensics.
Okay. So you shifted away from law enforcement. You realized that wasn't your best avenue, and you joined the Army, eventually into the Rangers and then the Green Berets. How were you? We've had a couple Green Berets on recently on the show, and learning some of the different ways of applying into the special forces. How did that path expose itself for you?
So after 9/11, the day of 9/11, I walked to the recruiter's office, and there was, I don't know, 4,000 people in front of me. When I finally got my chance 9 hours later to talk to a recruiter, he said, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Well, I want to be a Navy SEAL, Green Beret, Special Forces sniper, Halo guy." He's like, "Those are different things." I was like, "Oh, but are they?" Ironically, I'm 4 of the 5. And so I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And the 18 X-ray program was something that they had just, it's a year and a half pipeline to get a Green Beret qualified.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very slow process. And to find qualified applicants is very difficult. And they recruit heavily out of collegiate athletes. Even though we're all enlisted, they still look for, college athletes that won't go get a commission. They'll go specifically into the NCO ranks as a special forces guy. I was one of those guys.
Gotcha. And is it different than like the SEALs who, you can have a commission and go through buds? Or, pardon my ignorance on the topic, but that was one of my questions. Was you have a degree and you're in grad school, you could have gone through OCS or gotten a commission. What made you want to go NCO?
So we have in a special forces ODA, there's one officer, and he, while he's very valuable and he's an asset to the team, he's not a shooter. He is a liaison between command of the regular Army, especially when we're deployed. A lot of foreign militaries need to talk to your commanding officer. So that guy is the person that they talk to. He is the liaison. The rest of the ODA, the 12 of us, that's the team. The 12 NCOs, we're the shooters, we're the door kickers, we're the Halo guys, we're the sniper guys, we're the Sephardic guys, that's the team. And then you have the officer, an 18 Alpha, and he is the team leader, the liaison between the higher command and the team itself. So the team can operate. We have him. I don't want to be a liaison. I wanted to shoot people in the face. And so that is what I did.
So staying on the Green Beret aspect, we had a couple episodes ago, we had Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann on, who was a Green Beret for 18 years, 23 years in the Army total. And he teaches law enforcement now about some of the tactics of Green Berets, about building trust and going local and that sort of thing. You're teaching cops now, too, with your own company, Sheepdog Response, which we'll get to. Well, actually, let's get to that now. What does Sheepdog Response do? And maybe one big, giant question, if you could teach one thing to every cop in America, regardless of the topic, what would it be?
One thing, huh?
Well, you could do more than one.
Well, okay. Sheepdog Response is I don't want to sound like I'm bragging.
No, go ahead.
I'll just say that I'm unique. You're not going to find another human on the planet that's a top 10 UFC fighter, that's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, that's a black belt in combatives, that has, 10 different deployments to South America, Africa, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Europe. Um, that has been in the gunfights that, like, I'm an anomaly.
Sure.
And it would be because of all that experience. I've been in martial arts for 30 years. I've been a competitive shooter for 20 some odd years. I've been doing this forever. And even though I'm only 37 years old, I still have a lot more to do. Like, I'm still deploying. I'm still fighting. I'm going to be fighting, in November.
Right.
So I could create curriculum. I could create tactical training points. I could create POI that maybe nobody else on the planet could, because they haven't seen and can do it the level that I can, and put it all together. It's not just shooting and it's not just fighting. It's warrior shit, which is a little bit of all of it. So I bring in the best shooting instructors on the planet. I bring in the best fighters on the planet. And then I am somewhere in between those two, where I shoot really, really, really well, and I fight really, really, really well. And then I have the experts on each end of me to help subsidize the finest points of how to be perfect at both of them. So that's what Sheepdog Response is. It is my perception as an elite fighter and an elite shooter put into how not to get murdered, how to be the hardest person somebody ever tries to kill. And if I were going to impart one bit of wisdom to the law enforcement community, it's a mindset. It's a condition. It is a lifestyle. It's not, here's a skill. It's not that. It is a paradigm shift. I look at these police officers that are overweight, that are not training, that are not on the gym. I just came. The reason I was late to get on this podcast with you, I was on the range for 2.5 hours. After I was in the gym for an hour and a half. Before I go, I have about 2 hours of recovery time, and then I go work out again. And I'm on calls in between doing work. People are like, "Oh, that's your job." I'm like, "No, this is not my job. I'm working nonstop in between all of this." It is a warrior mindset. I have committed my life and I've committed my schedule to being the hardest person somebody ever tries to kill. And because I've committed myself to this, everything else about my life is healthier. I eat clean. I work out. I shoot. I have an amazing sex life. I have great sleep at night. My family life is fantastic. All of those other things are benefited because of this. Inversely, if you look at the typical police officer that does his shift, goes home, pops his beer, watches some football, and watch the slippery slope of his lifestyle ultimately ending in a Baton Rouge shooting where it's a bunch of cops that had no idea how to acquire side control or do any ground tactics, let alone submissions, and end up having to shoot a guy because they lack the training they need. Even though it's a good shooting and they could have shot that guy, just because you can shoot somebody doesn't mean you need to. My dad told me that before I went to Iraq, and it was like that shaped everything about what I became as a sniper. Just because I could shoot somebody didn't mean that I needed to. And as a CQB guy, where I'm kicking indoors, I could shoot dudes. I could also muzzle thump them in the face and then put flex cuffs on them and then, figure things out after that. So it's a lifestyle. It's a change. It's a paradigm shift of their life, and how they live it, so that they can serve the community that they swore that they would protect.
So I could totally spend the rest of our time on this, but what is people might think that you have a unique perspective given your deployments and the face-to-face violence that you've had to deal with, that it's quote unquote easy for someone in your perspective to adopt that because it is so close to your face, right? It's right in front of your nose. And it's harder sometimes for even a cop who hasn't had a critical incident or a shooting or anything like that to maintain or to adapt that sort of vigilance. How do you suggest people start to, you say it's a paradigm shift, and I totally agree with you, but how do they make that shift?
Yeah. it's a choice. It's this existential realization that they could. It's the maybe, it's the possibility, it's the unknown.
Right.
And if you're not scared to death of having to shoot somebody that shouldn't be shot, then I'm not going to talk. There's no point. I can't change your mind. But if you fear making a mistake that's going to take somebody's life, like I don't know how many people I've shot. I don't. But I know I sleep at night. I've made mistakes, but I know that I could not have trained harder or better prepared myself to be the best version of the shooter that I am. In the shooting range that I just came from, like just now, like why I'm late to get on this call, dripping sweat. That was after a 90-minute workout. It's maybe 100, 101, 102 degrees here in Central Texas. Gravel. We were doing up down drills, draw drills, transition drills on steel and variant distances between 25 to 50 meters. A little bit of blood, a little bit of sweat, intentional malfunctions, immediate action drills. That feels normal to me. That feels like a normal day at the range. That's not shooting in air conditioning. That's not shooting a qualifying course, so I'm allowed to carry a pistol. Having somebody yell at me, having a pro timer go beep, time to run, like that seems normal. And if you say, well, how do you convince somebody? Like, I don't want to have to convince somebody because they're never going to commit themselves to it. They need to realize that they are in a position that could ultimately be taking somebody's life or saving somebody's life. There's no higher calling on the planet than that right there, taking or saving of life. And that is what police officers, firefighters, and soldiers do every day. There's nothing more important in human history than that.
Couldn't agree more. And you see it so nicely and plainly. And that may be the answer to a question related to, if you could teach one cop or teach a cop one thing. You had some very heartfelt things to say about law enforcement on Jocko's podcast, and maybe given in the context of your brother and your history and your dad. But if you could, if you had the opportunity, you do here, to talk one-on-one with officers, or if you have, in your area, what do you say to them, or what do you want them to understand from your perspective about, moving forward?
Yeah. Keep on keeping on first. Like this phase of negative press and this narrative about who they are and what they're doing, it's a phase. And it's intentional. It's by design for a purpose that I think will become apparent in the next few months. And it's intentionally to divide the country. I'm proud to have deep-rooted foundation into the law enforcement community, and I'm proud of everything that they have done. When you look at the hundreds of shootings throughout the year that happen, 99.99% of them are absolutely, completely righteous.
Sure.
And that 0.01% is even a question. You're like, man, I don't know what I would do in that situation. But it's really easy, to be the Tuesday morning quarterback to throw accusations unfounded, not being in those positions or never have experienced stress or have to fight for your life, or what it feels like to reach into somebody's waistband when you have blood dripping into your eyes and feel a gun in there. So, first I'm going to say keep on keeping on. And then second is there needs to be, at an upper management level, at a chief level, at a Department of Justice level, understanding that the police officers are ill-equipped and undertrained for what we expect them to be able to do. That we have the right guys. The vast majority of police officers are remarkable humans, and that this is what they dreamed of doing since they were kids. Yeah, there's bad apples, but I'm not talking about them. I'm taking almost the entire tree. There's thousands of apples up there. They're all there for a reason. They're all delicious and they're all perfect. And that is the vast majority of the law enforcement community. Yes, there are a couple that have fallen on the ground. That's not what I'm talking about. So we have the right guys. The They don't need to be demonized by the Department of Justice. You know, somebody, Loretta Lynch, walking up there and saying, "Rah, rah, rah, these guys are not doing the right thing," or the Albuquerque Police Department, or, you know, the Baton Rouge. Shut up. Shut up. There needs to be a shift at the highest level. Chiefs, Department of Justice, supporting these guys and then realizing that they need to have the right equipment and training so that they can do the job. That's more sleep, that's more officers, and better equipment and better training.
Excellent. I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. All right, I want to shift gears a little bit and learn a little bit more about like your day to day and in your own, just how you live. You know, like you mentioned earlier, you just announced that you're going to be fighting in UFC 205 at Madison Square Garden. Nice little, small little venue, small little fight. I mean, so, you know, you have a team of people with you at, you know, for your fight prep and then for your fight camp and getting you into that ring. They're obviously important to your success. And I think the same is true in your military service. You're surrounded by a team. I mean, that team of 12 you're talking about, and they all have the ability to make you better or worse. And now in your private life, I mean, you're I say quasi-civilian, I guess, but you're also entrepreneur. You're an instructor, like you say, for Sheepdog Response. And a big theme of our show is how you pick the team to surround you to make you better. Yeah. How do you pick your team that surrounds you, and how do you find the people you need to elevate your game, improve your weaknesses, and make you better?
So there's a ton of assholes in this world. Coattail riders, ethnocentric, narcissistic pricks that are self-serving. I look for the guy that is picking up the steel and picking up everybody else's brass. That's the guy I want to shoot with. I look for the guy that comes into the office first and leaves last. I look for the guy that is working smarter, not harder, but knows how to work hard. You know, my partner Blake Hayes, it's hard to find somebody that's going to hustle as hard as I do. You know, that's gonna get up at dawn and go to bed at midnight. Like that's how I work. You know, Nick Palmisano at Ranger Up. I've never spent a cent of my fight money. I've been a professional athlete for 15 years. I've been ranked top 10 in the world for the past 13 years, you know, on and off between deployments. Every cent of my money, I find a person like Blake or like Nick, and whatever they're doing, I just support them. You know, I look for the guys that are dedicated and committed almost obsessively to what they do. You know, like my shooting instructors, Alex Acosta and Jake, you know, the shooting partner, shooting instructor, somewhere between there. They want to be perfect. You know, not only do they want to be grandmasters, not only do they want to be 3-gun competitors at the highest level, winning worlds. When I say, hey, do you guys want to go shoot some long gun and do a 7-mile sniper course? They're like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Those guys, like my strength coaches, they're not a fat guy with a whistle and a stopwatch. These are guys that do the workout before I do it to make sure that the workout is perfect and will break me. Like Juan at On It, or Todd Moore at Atomic Athlete. Those are my coaches. You know, when you get to jiu-jitsu and striking, you know, Winklejohn, Greg Jackson, and Paulo Brandao, they're the best in the world. There's nobody better. And I honestly, I am not good at anything. I am a product of hard work and good coaching. If I had talent, I would have been a world champ like 10 years ago. And if I had the John Jones talent, the Anderson Silva talent, if I had that, I don't. What I have is a really fixed goal and a commitment to work hard and people that will direct me in the right way, which then gives me, 6 different successful companies, a very prolific, successful fighting career, and then so far a pretty decent military career.
pretty decent. I'll allow you that. So routines are another thing. I'm finding as I get older, I'm just slightly older than you, that the more I can routine my day or schedule my day, the better it is, and the more successful I am. Yeah. Do you have a routine you stick to throughout your day, either now or when you were on active duty?
Yeah, every day. You know, I'll pull my phone up and show you my calendar with you know what time I get up, which is around daybreak. I'm able to work for about an hour before this little guy. Let me show you that guy. Can you see him?
Not quite.
Yeah. Oh, it's my son.
Okay.
It says sleeping monitor. If he wakes up, this interview's over because I have to go get him.
All right.
He's moving. Don't move. Don't wake up. All right, we're good. Gives me an hour and a half of work before he wakes up. He wakes up. My girls are already at school. When my girls go to school and he's up so I can say hi to him, I go to the gym for my first workout. So now I've got my good time with my family. They're off doing their thing. Now it's my time to get my work done. Now I go to the gym, I work, and then I go from there to the shooting range. I shoot for 90 minutes to 2 hours. Come back, have about 2 hours to rehydrate. During that rehydration recovery time, that's when I do my calls. That's when I do my interviews. That's when I, delegate tasks at the different companies. That's when I, hop on calls with our accountants, and then start prepping to go for my next workout. So I have 2 to 3 workouts a day. I shoot 3 to 4 days a week. And then all the time in between each of those things is in front of a computer or on the phone.
I think you just described a perfect day for a lot of cops, a lot of working out and a lot of shooting.
Yeah.
But it takes
that should be. You say that's the perfect day for a lot of cops. In reality, that's only like 5 or 10% of guys would actually do that with their day off. I think that should be all of them.
Well, you're valid point. It's how do you squeeze all that in when you've got 48-hour work weeks, where you can't just break off and go to the range and shoot. That's the challenge. I mean, that's what half of the show is about, is trying to figure out how to work these issues of diet and sleep and exercise and mindset and training. How do you get those into the few hours that you're not either at work or asleep?
Yeah. It is a mindset and a commitment. Those two things, you said those were your 2 words. It's a mindset and a commitment. And then everything else after those 2 things can happen working in. I swear, man, I just want to show you my calendar, but there's stuff on there that I can't show you. There's not a minute in that day that I have not efficiently ergonomically capitalized on. And I just taught 3 back-to-back sheepdog courses doing 16-hour days, and I still got 2 workouts in every single day when I'm teaching 16-hour days.
Yeah.
No, so I don't talk. It can be done.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you at all. What I'm saying, that's why I asked the question, is that the failure comes in the lack of scheduling.
Yeah.
Because if you
schedule, while you're doing interviews, you pull up sirloin, egg and cheese with white egg breakfast tacos.
There you go.
So micro meals in between the day.
Micro meals. I'll let you chew on that, and that's probably going to answer one of my questions. So hopefully you can get that down before I ask. But that takes a lot of energy to function on a day like that. What is your diet like? Do you subscribe to a specific kind of diet, and also do you take supplements on a daily basis, or anything that is crucial to you that you find is good for your success?
Yeah. So I use supplements. I try to do everything with real food. Coffee and an apple is a pre-workout thing. I'll supplement that with like T Plus and Shroom Tech from On It. Both are like natural, real food things. Like Shroom Tech is like things from mushrooms that are a vascular dilator that make you be able to increase your workload. And then T Plus is kind of, it's not a stimulant, but it's like I don't know what it is. The nutritionist from On It is the one that's kind of put together my 6 to 8 meals a day around 5,000 to 6,000 calorie intake, because that's what I burn in a day. And I get to eat mostly everything that I consume is real food. Very few people understand what real food is. It's not some crap that you grab off the aisle in the supermarket. It's like came from the ground, or I knew the animal before it died, type food. And that's
it had a name.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Is he moving? I can see
he's moving, but he's good.
All right.
You see my eye shift?
I see your eye shift. I remember that from when my kids were there too. Like, oh, don't do it. All right. So I want to shift gears a little bit again. and talk about something that I think is going to be interesting. You had an Instagram post recently that got a lot of attention. I don't know, more than attention than you expected, but it got a lot. And I'm not going to quote the whole thing because it's kind of long, but I encourage everyone to read it, and I'll actually post it in the show notes. I'll post a link to it so people can read it. But maybe I'll just give, I don't know if it's appropriate to give my commentary on it first before I even ask you, but I guess to some, you were saying that anyone who claimed to have PTSD was just being, quote unquote, a pussy. And when I first read it, I thought that's what you meant. But when I was rereading it, it seemed to me that you were acknowledging that PTSD is real. However, it is solved and managed through hard work and service. And that being, quote unquote, again, a pussy was only if you submitted to it and allowed it to take over. I was hoping you could clarify that and shed some light on it, because I know you've got unique experience with that.
Yeah, your perception of it was my intent. A lot of people, I knew there's two sentences in that whole entire thing that could potentially really freak people out. And ironically, it wasn't the one where I said I killed women and children, which I thought was hilarious, which is also true. But it was, people like, you call it a whole bunch of post-traumatic stress people pussies. It's like, no. What I'm saying is, if you have a victim mentality, and this whole entire time that we've been talking, I have said it's a mindset. It is a choice. And sometimes you can't make that choice on your own. Sometimes you have just submitted to these experiences that you've had, or these things that you've seen. And now you're at this slippery slope you're never going to get up from. What I'm saying is that for you to truly be able to rebound from the things that I've seen, to the things that my brothers have seen, and all of my friends that have experienced the same things, or healthy people, it's because we have committed ourselves and we've made choices to keep ourselves healthy, to prevent from having to experience the need for counseling and medication, and how all the horrors that you have to live with, having seen the things that we've seen. It's easy to come back having, seen dead bodies, kids, women on the side of the road, or what it smells like to smell a body burn, and let those demons grow. The human body, you can almost look at it like soil. How are you preparing and cultivating your body for what type of thing to grow? Do you want healthy things to grow, which is going to be hard work, output, success, entrepreneurism, athleticism? Or are you conditionally setting yourself up for negative things to exist? And the entire motivation of that post was to encourage people, to empower people to get off their asses, to make that choice, to change that lifestyle, and commit themselves to having a soil, a body that is cultivated and prepared for greatness. And I think every veteran has every law enforcement officer, every firefighter, every paramedic, they have all of the things they need for greatness, to do amazing things that other people can't. But if they don't make the choice every single day to do the right thing, and to work hard, and to get up, and to eat right, and not to drink alcohol, and not to, go to strip clubs, to do all the right things, that the potential is limitless. But if you go the other way, inversely, and you're not doing those things, then don't come talking to me about, I'm struggling with PTSD. Okay, well, when was the last time you exercised? How much alcohol have you drank this week? What different types of medications, and whose were they that you started ingesting? What was your diet like? How much sleep did you get? When was the last time you had sex? And lo and behold, if I go down these questions, it's just like one after another. It's bad choice after bad choice after bad choice after bad choice. And you can't even imagine how many emails I get from people being like, "Hey, I'm struggling. Can you help me?" It's like somebody asking me, "Hey, can you help me write a diet?" Or can you give me a workout plan? And I go, "When was the last time that you worked out?" "Well, if you give me a workout plan, I'll work out." No. That's not how this works. You haven't worked out in 4 months. Me writing you and spending hours to develop a workout plan for you is not going to send you to the gym. You being in the gym, just if you go walk 1 hour a day for 30 days, and I'll write you a workout. Not one person's ever done it. Give me a log of what you've eaten for a week, and I'll write you a diet plan. But no, nobody has ever done it because nobody puts the work in. I'm saying put the work in, and then you will see what the opportunity is for a healthy, nightmare-free life.
I'm kind of speechless because I think that the soil analogy you just used is such a great way to think about that, in how you reap what you sow, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I'm in my own head now thinking about it.
Look around behind you.
Yeah. Well, my audience can't see.
I see a barbell. I see an American flag. I see supplements. I see a dumbbell.
You also see a lot of laundry.
I see dirty laundry from work. Those are the indicative signs of somebody that is committed to something that could be potentially greater than themselves. So I would talk to you for hours. If you're struggling, I'd be like, dude, let's talk. Let's see who can help. Let's see if I can get, but you're an anomaly in honesty. Honestly, like that, most people are too lazy to take the first steps, or sometimes they can't even take the steps themselves because they're so damaged, but they have to make a choice and say, I need help. And then people like me will step up and help them. People like you will step up and help them. But it's a choice to get off their ass and start preparing the soil for something great to grow.
Tim, I couldn't think of a better place to end on. Thank you for your time. Real quick, before we do get off the phone or the call, where can people find out more about Sheepdog Response if they want to come learn directly from you?
Sheepdogresponse.com, Facebook, Sheepdog Response. We have guys like Colton Smith. He's a UFC fighter, Ranger, that's currently deployed in Afghanistan. While he's in Afghanistan, he just shot a video for us on a side ride technique for fighting. We post stuff like that. We have guys like Alex Acosta, who's one of the best shooting instructors in the nation, that posts little drills. I actually just today learned I just shaved off about a quarter second off of my slide lock reload time. From something that he gave me that we started drilling today. Quarter second is crazy change. So Sheepdog Response on Facebook and sheepdogresponse.com on the World Wide Web.
And we'll put all those in the show notes too for everyone to follow. I highly suggest everyone follows your Instagram too. It's always entertaining and always you're always in interesting places, it seems too.
Yeah. We have a law enforcement nonprofit foundation that is we're probably about 2 weeks away from it being finalized. We all have all the paperwork in. We already have people giving us donations, and it's to be able to help departments identify people that need training and be able to get those guys to the training. It's tight belt time with a lot of law enforcement agencies.
Yes.
In a time when they should be spending every cent they have on giving it to officers to get the training that they need.
Awesome. I can't wait to see more about that. Tim, again, thank you very much for your time. Yep. I will definitely be in your corner at 2:05. Good luck at Madison Square Gardens, man. It's going to be a good show.
Thanks.
All right, big thank you to Tim Kennedy for being on the show. He was gracious enough to give us a lot of his time and had a great conversation with him and really enjoyed that. It's a small world when you find out stuff like that about someone who is seemingly so far away. Anyway, thanks again to Audible for their support of the show. You can get your free audiobook today at audibletrial.com/The Squad Room. Again, that's audibletrial.com/The Squad Room for your free audiobook. Thanks for listening to the show. If you do have a comment, a question, a concern, just want to say hi, please. I love hearing from you. You can check me out on Twitter and on Instagram at The Squad Room, or shoot me an email, garrett@thesquadroom.net. We want to hear from you because we love hearing what you guys are dealing with, what you're thinking, and what you're going through. Also, if you have a moment, please consider leaving a 5-star review or any star review, be an honest review, on iTunes through the iTunes app or iTunes store. And tell a friend about the show. Please pass this around and help us spread the word about this kind of stuff that we know that, like today's episode especially, more cops need to hear this stuff. So spread the word. Help us pass along Tim's message and the message of everybody who's been on this show. All right, until next time, take care of each other and stay safe.